Welcome to Inside the Exchange, where we discuss entrepreneurship, business development, and how your business can succeed here in San Joaquin County. Click the link below to learn more. Now let's get into the episode. Happy day to you. We have Matt Brown in the house with our podcast for Inside the Exchange. And we have some exciting news. I'll let him introduce himself, but he is a new official board member of the Exchange. So we welcome you to the podcast. And I know this is your first time recording a podcast. So how exciting is that? And you can introduce yourself.
Well, thank you. My name is Matt Brown. I'm with Oak Valley Community Bank. I do commercial lending and commercial banking. I'm based out of the Lodi office, which recently opened this October. Oak Valley Community Bank is a bank founded in 1991 in Oakdale. We're still headquartered in Oakdale. We have 19 branches from Turlock up to Sacramento and Roseville. We're a full service bank. We work with personal and commercial clients. And I'm the newest director to the Exchange. So yes. Thanks for having me.
Thank you. So what is your experience in the banking world?
So I started in banking right out of college. I went to the University of California, Santa Cruz, got a degree in accounting. And then was recruited by my hometown bank, the Bank of Rio Vista. So it's a bank that was located in the Delta. It was over 100 years old. And I went right into commercial lending and commercial banking. And it was a great opportunity for me. It was in my hometown. I knew the community really well. And then in 2018, it was acquired by another financial institution. And I then went to a couple other banks, or one other bank, and then ended up at Oak Valley. So I'm leading the commercial lending team at Oak Valley, based out of Lodi, and spearheading all of our commercial lending and commercial banking efforts.
So what made you choose commercial banking? Were you a part of a family business? Was there some kind of incentive or familiarity, which I cannot pronounce, so if I shouldn't use that word. Is there, like, you can relate to the local contractor or needing those financial?
So not at all. I come from a very blue collar background. My grandfather was an iron worker and welder, and my father was a diesel mechanic and a machinist. And so that background is what I grew up in, but I was able to attend college, able to find that accounting really worked for me. And my intention was to work for a CPA firm, one of the big four, your Ernst & Young, Price Waterhouse type companies. But right out of college, I was recruited by the Bank of Rio Vista and took the opportunity to go back home and support my local community. And it stuck. I found that I really liked banking. I really liked working with the breadth of clients you get to work with at the bank. And I found that my accounting background was extremely beneficial in understanding how the businesses work and understanding the numbers, but then also the why, right? In banking, the why the numbers are a certain way is just as important as the numbers themselves. You have to be able to understand the drivers behind what's making the numbers change, year over year, or due to certain specific strategic actions taken by a client.
Do you find yourself being a mentor and giving that information to future bankers that are looking and following in your path with that information, of knowing that there's a little bit more insight they can do to give them more knowledge?
Yeah, I think that in banking, experience always helps. And it helps to lean on the experience of other professionals, especially when you're starting your career. Then, as you progress through your career and you've seen more, the experiences then is shared with, the younger or up and coming lenders that need that support. So the importance of having a strong culture, just like for the construction industry, having a strong culture at a bank of building that young workforce and building up their capacity and their knowledge is really important.
Well, and understanding the beast of a construction owner.
Right.
They're going 20 different directions, and they have good intentions when they say, I'll call you right back, or I'll get that over to you. And then they've got 20 other fires to put out. So
Right.
you do have to stay on top of them in a way that is supportive. It's probably a little niche that you have to have with the contractors out there and their needs. So what have you found to be easier to tackle? Someone that is just starting their business and come to you right when they're green, or someone that's been in the business, been through a couple trials and errors and trying to get the loan or the credit application in, just what's easier for you and what challenges have you had with either one of those?
So the biggest challenge is always a new startup business. The risk associated with the new businesses is astronomical compared to established businesses. So those businesses that are established, have the experience, have the leadership, those are the companies that are the easiest to work with. They're the ones who have been through the fire and have made small changes all along the way to improve their business, improve their financials, improve their operational efficiencies. Have just market knowledge that new businesses that don't have. So not to say that we don't like to support those up and coming young businesses, but the established businesses are obviously easier to bank.
They probably have gone through some blows and
Right.
can pick themselves up. And then also maybe they just have a little bit more forgiveness with the process as well. And, owning a construction company here in California, the highs and lows, especially with coming off of COVID and its still lingering ways, it is nice to be able to show that your years in the owning the business is shown as kind of a credit reference in a way, because you've weathered some storms.
Yeah, and businesses that have been established, they obviously most of the time have more equity in the business. They have more liquidity, better working capital, a lot of times better relationships with the people they're doing the work for, so they're
the suppliers
suppliers, and so they may know how to just operate better in the space. And me as a banker, that experience from those people also, it gives the bank security to know that the people that we're working with know what they're doing.
And that's the neat thing about the exchange, is where you're an instrumental part on the board, where you can give that insight on the trends that are coming up, or, maybe some pluses and minuses. And then also being at the events, networking, that's why it's important to be a part of the exchange as a contractor to help your fellow members, because they will become instrumental players, whether it's on a job site or however it plays out to be. The industry is so small. So it's neat to really try to touch all those bases so we can be that umbrella to that construction company and be able to offer those resources. So it's really exciting that you are part of the board and part of the organization and offer that insight. Are there any particular events you're looking forward to?
I enjoy shooting sporting clays. So the Sportsman's dinner is obviously probably top of my list. But like you said, having a relationship with your banker, I think, is most important, or should I say a banker that wants to have a relationship with you.
Sure.
Having someone who's proactive in staying in touch, being proactive in getting what the bank needs in order to stay in compliance, not relying strictly on the client to get them everything that they need. Yeah. A proactive banker, a quick banker, someone who you you should have your banker's cell phone number and be able to call them at any time. Having that closeness when issues arise, bringing them up early, having that lead time, because, banks work as quickly as they can, but it's not an overnight process.
Mm-hmm.
So having early and proactive conversations, good and bad, are extremely important in being prepared to execute your business plan.
Yeah, it's kind of like when you go to purchase a home, you want to know where your finances lie. So, whether the company's been around for so long, do they necessarily know? They might be winging it, might be paycheck to paycheck, but to get that information as you grow, to build that relationship with your lender, with your banker, could only be instrumental to succeeding.
Right. Sometimes it said, have quarterly meetings with your banker, or have, semi-annual meetings with your banker. But I think a lot of times it's whenever a material event happens to your business that would affect your financial situation, good and bad, growth, opportunities, showing your bank that, hey, I'm going to need extra working capital support this year because I'm growing in this direction and this is the way I want to go. Having those conversations and having a banker that can proactively adjust what you need at the bank is important. And that works across lending. It works across treasury management services, payroll, all those things. The bank can support you in accomplishing those tasks. You just need to be, you need a proactive banker, and you need to have someone that you can talk it through with.
Yes, and having that security of knowing you have someone that is in touch with your finances and has your best intentions can relieve some of that anxiety of being a business owner, and especially in the times that are rougher than expected. It's definitely insurance. It's priceless information, it's priceless resources, and can really offer that comfort. What do you see in any trends coming up with the commercial lending with construction companies? Do you have any insight on that?
So I think in general, costs are going up. Overhead costs for construction companies are increasing. The average size of jobs is increasing as a result. So what I'm seeing at the bank is just credit requests are just getting bigger. They're moving in proportion to what the contractors are seeing on the job site. And that's not necessarily a bad thing. It's just something that needs to be actively reviewed with both the contractor and the bank. Working capital lines of credit may need to be increased because the company needs working capital support. Sometimes it's just because a surety company needs the business to have a larger line of credit.
Yeah.
They may be able to manage their cash flow fine, but the surety company says, no, you need a bigger line of credit for them to feel comfortable.
And the compliance issues, with their equipment, whether they've had that equipment for so long, and that should be a plus on their books. It might not be because of all the initiatives of green and things have changed.
Yeah, with California's emissions standards, it makes it much more capital intensive to replace your equipment, replace your vehicles.
When sometimes when you put these bids out, they're put out, 6 months to a year before the job is going to start. So obviously the costs have changed, and how the contractor is going to deal with that without, causing a lot of restriction is kind of an unforeseen thing too, that you have to navigate through that. How do you see yourself on the board and being a part of the exchange?
So I think I can bring a banking specific point of view to the board, something that's different than I think the day-to-day contractors that are on the board. I think I can be a resource for what the bank is looking for, questions that arise from the different companies about how the bank looks at specific situations. Each company is different. Each financial situation is different. And, having a banker who can say, no, you're okay. You just need to fix this. Or, you're doing great. Just, this is what you need to do to take the next step to grow your business. Having that type of consultative role on the board, I think, is going to be helpful.
How does it work with the bonding, with the credit application? How do those two work together?
So that's not actually something that the bank and the surety company, at least in my experience, they've never really worked together in that regard. It's always been through the contractor. The contractor says, my surety company would like to see a line of credit in.
So bonding's typically obviously on the larger jobs and city jobs that require the larger bonding. So it's something that isn't necessarily, they're not the same, but you would need both?
Correct.
Okay. We hope you're enjoying this episode of Inside the Exchange, hosted by Builders Exchange of San Joaquin. If you own a construction or service-based business here in San Joaquin County, we help businesses like you through networking, training, insurance, and connecting you with the best jobs available. Click the link below for more information. Now let's get back to the episode. So with your role on the board in reaching our members, what do you think would be one of the topics that you would first enlighten if we were to have a class at the exchange on, being a contractor, going in for that application or asking for that extra line of credit? What could you do to get all your ducks in a line?
So I think that first and foremost is having quality financials. I think a lot of times contractors, especially smaller ones, get in bad habits of keeping messy books and having their accountant make reconciliations at the end of the year to clean them up. Well, when you provide that information to the bank, it's hard to understand. It's hard to see exactly where the business is. But also in that same regard, I can kind of go over what the bank's looking for. Yeah. So obviously financial statements, an income statement and a balance sheet. The bank is looking at the income statement for cash flow and for profitability. We're going to see what your profitability margins have done over the years. We're going to look at, what is the profitability margins moving, looking forward with a jobs in progress report or a backlog. We want to know how profitable is the company, who's the customers that you're working with. And are you getting consistently profitable jobs? Is your estimating in line with
the actual true cost?
with the current market? Yeah. And so the bank looks at the profitability and everything. Then we use a shorthand for cash flow, which is called EBITDA. It's earnings before interest, taxes, depreciation, and amortization. So we take EBITDA.
Say that 5 times fast.
Right. So we take EBITDA and we divide it by the debt service. So debt service is just all your loan payments, interest payments, everything that you owe on an annual basis. We take the EBITDA divided by your debt service, and we get what's called a debt service coverage ratio. And that's basically for every dollar of cash flow, what are your debts? What do you owe in loans and other payments due to? So we obviously want to see positive cash flow. Cash flow does not always equal profitability. There's lots of different tax mitigation, depreciation strategies to reduce profitability. But when you look at cash flow, we obviously add those things back. So we want to see positive cash flow from that perspective.
So with buying like a fleet of trucks, it's better to show those payments and keep that cash than just to pay off those trucks and have less cash and have to rebuild. When you go through these larger changes, if you move your office size or, overhead costs that would deplete that cash flow.
That kind of plays into the next step is the balance sheet, because we also look at the balance sheet. And what I primarily look for on the balance sheet is I look at working capital, and then I look at your liabilities, and your liabilities also obviously lead into your equity. But I want to see your working capital be adequate for the amount of debt that you have. Working capital is your current assets less less your current liabilities, and it basically shows how much cushion do you have. After all your current liabilities have been paid, what is there available to run the business or to grow. And we provide lines of credit to help working capital. If you have a lot of money tied up in your accounts receivable and jobs are slow to pay, that's what those lines of credit are for. It's to kind of bridge that timing gap between the work that's been done and the collection of those receivables. And I think all contractors know that there are certain circumstances where those receivables get drawn out a really long time. So obviously working capital is really important, and then the equity in the company. A lot of times the balance sheet is showed on a depreciated basis. So the net equity in the company will be really low or negative due to those depreciation schedules.
Yeah.
So a lot of times I try to back into a market-based balance sheet. It's not going to match the books, but it's going to show me, okay, what is the actual market value of this company? How much equity is in this company when you look at the market value of the equipment and take the accounts receivable and the cash? And
what's the biggest mistake that you possibly would see? And I'm sure you wouldn't tell them it's a mistake, but with buying all new equipment or buying used and leasing, or just different, well, I guess new and they would lease it, or used and buy it for cash. Like, what's the biggest mistake you see and the best move that you see with a contractor? If there's a couple, I understand. Like you said, of course, the bookkeeping, but like what purchases?
Sorry, that's a good question.
It's a deep question.
So the mistake in my mind is shrinking your working capital, paying cash for that equipment and having no liquidity.
Okay.
Liquidity is it's very important. All banks are going to look at your liquidity. And if you've used all your cash to purchase equipment, shrinking your working capital, that's not how we'd like to see it done. We'd like to see you properly utilizing long-term credit facilities to maybe purchase.
So you can show that payment schedule.
Right. So that debt burden can be allocated over the useful life of the asset.
Because I bet you some contractors that get a good job and it finally gets paid, and then they're like, we got to go buy that truck, or it's a good deal, we got to pay cash for it. But possibly it's better to show that history of payment.
Right. And again, with depreciation schedules and different tax strategies, how a business owner wants to move forward is specific to their situation. If they've got a lot of cash and can, pay cash for something, that's great. If their working capital is lean and they need to finance that equipment on long-term notes, that's what they should do.
Okay. Yeah. Versus just burning through that cash. So liquidity, you said?
Liquidity.
And then cash flow.
Liquidity and cash flow.
Those are your top.
Those are big deals.
Okay.
Yep. Cash flow and working
capital. And then I know I interrupted your process of what a contractor needs to have ready to work with you.
Sure. So what you can expect coming into the bank is that we're going to need 3 years of year-end financial statements and tax returns. And that's going to be a minimum. We're also going to need the current year-end. If it's close, if it's the beginning of the year, we'll need the last year's year-end, or we'll need an interim financial statement with a income statement, balance sheet, and what we'll also ask for is debt schedules. We'll want you to, give us your, monthly or annual payments on any of your debt. We'll ask for a backlog, jobs in progress report, WIP report, sometimes called. For bigger requests, we'll do accounts receivable and accounts payable aging reports. So we'll want to make sure that you're collecting your receivables in a reasonable amount of time. For larger requests, we'll also tie them to a borrowing base. And those can be monthly, those can be quarterly, depending on each specific situation. But a borrowing base, we will look at your accounts receivable. We'll look at your, retentions. We'll look at basically all your inflows of cash, and we'll net out, your accounts payable, to see what that number looks like, to make sure that it adequately covers a working capital line of credit.
Neat. So nice perks. We'll have to generate part of our newsletter to back up this podcast when our viewers watch it, just so they can go back and reference to it. And you joined us at the breakfast this last week. What did you think of the industry update breakfast at the Hilton?
Well, it was interesting to see the amount of commercial activity, going on in San Joaquin County, especially along that Manteca, Tracy, Lathrop corridor. There's a lot going on down there, and there's some stuff going on in Lodi and Stockton too. But that corridor just seems like it's booming.
Mm-hmm.
And, that also with a lot of infrastructure, jobs and multifamily, some agriculture, but it seems like there's a lot of work going around that can be beneficial to the industry.
Yeah, definitely. And we, before you were on the board, we did a donation to START through Stockton Chamber for retail theft. And then also, they have multiple levels now, but they were citywide. Now they're going to go out further. So we are part of this next campaign, and, reflecting on the fact that if we aren't supporting local retail, we're going to lose jobs. We're going to lose the storefront jobs and then residential, so we've got to work as a team. What do you think with the organizations that you're involved with, besides your job, that would benefit our local area to keep it growing?
So outside of the Builders Exchange, I've been a Rotarian for 10 years. I'm the incoming president-elect for the Lodi Rotary Club. So having these service clubs that bring people together and share knowledge and build strong relationships, I think that's important moving forward. I think that having Lodi specifically is very big in community development and planning. They're not just growing wide open, right? It's trying to be a planned and strategic growth mindset. So specifically in that community, I see, the city council and different developers taking a more conservative approach.
So they have less vacant retail space.
I think that Lodi is unique in that we've kind of grown to our city bounds, and there's only so much development that can go on without annexation of real estate around the city. But I think moving forward that you're going to see a lot more, going on in Lodi.
Do you work with any city officials on development, or are you still kind of new to your position and haven't really worked too close with any city officials?
Yeah, no, I don't work closely with any city officials. I mean, we work closely with the Chamber of Commerce.
Are they still right next door?
Yeah, they're right next door.
Okay.
Yeah. So they're next door, but it's obviously Lodi's I call it a small community. I mean, city council members are available to have discussions with, when warranted, and it seems like in a community that those conversations can be had. They're not out of reach.
Yeah, neat. So what else do you do in your free time? What are your hobbies?
So I've been married 13 years.
A fellow banana slug?
Yeah.
I do remember that.
Yeah. My wife, Johanna, and I met met at UC Santa Cruz. We have 2 kids. My daughter Hope is 8 and my son Lee is 6. So they do soccer and basketball, swim team. I coach Upward Sports, in Lodi. Other than that, I mean, we like to go camping. We like to just spend time as a family.
How did you get involved in the coaching?
I played sports growing up, and my parents always coached me. So I think it was just natural for me to coach my kids. Plus, I enjoy spending time in the community. I enjoy meeting the other parents. And Upward is a unique program as well because it is faith-based. It's sponsored by a number of local churches. And it is a ministry to be able to share God's love with other people, with people in the community, and build those relationships in a very non-intimidating way, in a very organic and natural way.
So do you play other churches because they've all funded this program?
So the program is sponsored primarily by our church, which is First Baptist Church of Lodi. And then there's a couple other churches that also let us use their facilities.
Okay.
And so I think there were 1,200 kids in the program.
And what are the ages?
Year. So it goes from kindergarten all the way up to 8th grade.
Okay.
Yeah, but 1,200 kids. It's about a 10-week long season.
They practice during the week and play on the weekend, or how do they?
Yeah, usually games on Saturdays, practices during the week or on Sundays. I think there's also games during the week. Kind of depends on the age level.
Okay. So. I know it's probably fun to watch those little kindergartners.
Yeah. No, my family's most important to me, right now, and, watching my kids grow up and not being too busy to, enjoy that time with them.
Well, time is a thief. We don't get it back.
Right.
Yes. And it's, a reminder of what your core base is. So your home plate, who supports you when you're not in the room, or, when you're out doing what you need to do to provide for them, that you have that family unit to come home to.
Right.
How about animals?
No, well, we have one cat.
Okay.
Yeah, we have one cat
we like
now.
Cats.
Yeah, Sam.
Oh, Sammy.
Yeah,
I had a Sammy.
He's a black and white tuxedo cat.
Okay.
We have a joke that he's the best dog we ever had.
Yeah, I think does he fetch?
He doesn't fetch, but he comes in and just,
He thinks he's a dog.
he acts like a little dog.
Oh, that's cute.
Yeah, but just a cat.
Just a cat.
Yeah.
Well, that can be enough.
Right.
And the cat probably thinks it's enough.
Right.
Have you ever thought about putting on the little collar so you can see what he does during the day?
Oh, no.
I think that's so funny. I love watching him, and they're like,
Yeah.
burr, burr, burr.
No. Yeah, he our neighborhood kind of backs up to Lodi Lake, and so we have a lot of raccoons in the neighborhood. And we've heard stories from neighbors about how this cat Sam will
Fight him off.
we'll be walking just right next to the raccoons.
Oh, so he's got his homies.
Yeah, so I call him the Irishman.
Well, you know why?
Because,
they probably go in the garbage can
like the
for him.
mob movie. He's not a raccoon, but he is. He's in the mob.
He's good. Well, and they're the trash pandas, and so he's probably like, "What you got in there?
Right.
You got some leftovers?"
Yeah.
So he is part dog. I can totally see
and
it.
those raccoons like to come and eat his food, but he just lets them have it. So
that's so funny.
Yeah.
I remember, I'll never forget going and feeding one of my cats in Los Altos, and it was night, and I couldn't see, and it was a possum. Scared the living lights out of me.
Yeah.
And then it played dead, and then I didn't understand that either because I was pretty young. And then there's been many times that I've fed raccoons, and we had one in the point in Brookside, and that thing was so fat. He would just wobble, like he'd kind of look at you like, "What are you gonna do?" And he's like, "I can only move so fast. I'll run from you," but he would just waddle across the street and he would go hide. But yeah, I felt like we fed all the wildlife in Brookside. Where we live now, we don't really have the outside food because we live near the highway, but It's funny. That is funny. I'd like to see images of that. You have to get like outside camera with him,
right?
With his mob friends.
Yeah, really.
He's the ringleader.
Right.
He needs a gold chain.
Yeah. Right.
For a collar. I could just live through this right now.
Right.
What else is something that you could dive into that would help the exchange or help your local contractors that might not be something that they would necessarily think? You get like this disheveled contractor that comes in your office and he's just like, I don't know what to do. I'm at my wit's end. What do I do? Help me.
Well, I think that contractors specifically are pulled in so many different directions.
Yes.
That having somebody at the bank that they can trust and know is on top of it for them is important. And, we're not going to kid anyone that, the banking side of things isn't normally someone's favorite thing to do.
Yeah.
Right.
It's
a means to an end.
Yes.
It's something you have to deal with. And if you have a banker that you trust and that you like and you can have good, positive communication with, it makes that part a little bit easier.
So liquidity, cash flow,
mm-hmm.
banker, CPA.
Right.
Who else? Insurance for bonding, and then lawyer. Megan said that was one of her crucial things is, just see, because everybody thinks that they should start a business,
right.
or not everyone, but, particular people like, I'm going to go into business for myself. But are you necessarily a natural business owner? Do you have the capabilities to adapt? And that's obviously something you're saying the experience is like a credit history for these contractors because they have to be able to adapt. You constantly are educating yourself. Like with any profession, there's always styles changes or something's changing and you have to stay on those times.
Contractors, you have options in who you choose to bank with. There's big banks, there's small banks. There's certain banks that do things better than others. But what's most important to me is being fair, being transparent, being quick in my decision making, getting back to my clients right away, explaining them the why mm-hmm. behind what the bank may be requiring, explaining the why so that they understand is really important, because if they don't know why we're asking for something, they don't have the opportunity to fix it.
Mm-hmm. True. The importance of that,
right, is that's really important to me, is making sure that my clients understand the why. Mm-hmm. And then also having that communication so that when big things do come up, it's not catching anybody off guard. Mm-hmm. I don't want my clients to ever feel caught off guard by what I'm asking of them, mm-hmm. And also it's reciprocal. I don't want to be caught off guard by a request from one of my clients. I want those conversations to be proactive and happening before they're needed.
Yeah, and hopefully not last minute.
Yeah, not last minute, right?
Can we do this yesterday? Well, no.
Right. Yeah, right.
Yeah, there's a process.
Right. I think the community banks are more nimble. They can work faster and more
that's what I was going to ask.
With more flexibility
than a
big bank
that you can get that local support that sees the local trends and knows what we need locally, versus a larger bank that's an 800 number. You might not have the same person in 5 years
right.
or however it is.
Right. And having that point of contact, having that point guard at the bank, they can take the ball and get it wherever it needs to be in the bank. Mm-hmm. You have your person. You ask them. You ask them to get something done for you.
Yep.
And they do it and they see it through, and they're transparent and quick and get back to you in a timely way and provide actual meaningful solutions mm-hmm. to the problems you're trying to solve is important.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's another thing too with having a local banker. It's again, meeting with local construction companies, whether it's a competitor or not, is learning the pros and cons, and you're not going to get that from an organization that doesn't have a local representative. And that's something that, to tie back to the exchange, again, is that you're dealing with local contractors that are dealing with similar issues that you are, whether it's city-based, county-based, or materials, just the infrastructure locally, the age of half the underground if you get into an underground company or electrical. There's so many things. There's different water districts, there's different power resources that you can utilize and pull from, and those overall resources. So to have that local representation with the bank, and then to have that local community within the exchange of fellow contractors. And don't be scared, roll up those sleeves, go up to an event and, wear your shirt, bring your business cards, and, ask the questions. And I've seen with the classes that we offer at the exchange that a lot of the contractors stay after and start talking, hey, yeah, I saw you out at the job site.
Right.
And, having that initial meeting when you start a job so you can line it out, because obviously not everything works the way you want it to once you get the job started. There can be so many issues, whether it's supplies or the layout or timing. I'm just trying to think, permits, and so you might have to have that flow. So like you're saying, it's a key to have your banker's phone number. It's good to be able to build those relationships with fellow contractors out at that job site. So grading, if they have to come in different or you have to come in different, you could have those communications. It's not scary to have those conversations. But how do they know what questions to ask sometimes? So it's always going back to those mentorships, that person that knows that information, that can give you that insight and kind of give you that relief.
Right. Well, I mean, every contractor is different. And we at Oak Valley, we look at each client individually, and we know that each client has its own unique problems, has its own unique strengths. And so having a bank that's going to be flexible with the financing, having a company that can provide services that might save money or create, more operational efficiencies is important, I think, to most contractors. They don't want to have to go figure it out themselves. They want someone who can say, look, based off of what I know about your company, this could be a really good fit. And, whether that's, payroll services or money market sweep accounts that can, earn you more interest. All those type of things should be being looked at by your banker, and if your banker's not making recommendations for things that could benefit you, you may want to look somewhere else, because there are a lot of good bankers out there, especially at community banks.
Yeah. That's a good insight. Something, again, it was referred to a long time ago when I first started in this position that contractors were lazy. And I'm like, no,
yeah,
they're anything but lazy. They're pulled in 80,000 different directions. And, they all, again, who's the proper business owner versus somebody that knows the skill set. So they've obviously gone into business for a reason, whether they've done it for so long and they know they can do it, but they don't know the business side of it. And then they have to develop those skills. But they're definitely going 20 different directions. So to offer those key players in your business and your growth will give you that relief, let you sleep a little bit lighter at nighttime.
Right.
So it is crucial.
Right. And working with Oak Valley, you have local decision makers. You have people who are here in the community making the decisions, whether it's a credit request or other things. That decision making is local. And I like
that the resources, the money, it's local.
Right. And relationships matter.
They absolutely do.
They matter to Oak Valley, and they matter to community banks more than I think.
And they matter to contractors, because to know that you're obviously working with a licensed contractor, but someone that understands public works or understands, the severity of having certain things in place, and they're not just, going up by the seat of their pants all the time. It's good to know that you're working with someone that would have the ability to follow through.
Right.
Is an insurance, and again, priceless.
Right.
So you could sleep at nighttime without freaking out about everything, because there's a lot that goes into play, and I know when we started, that's right when really the skilled and trained workforce started, and following the requirements and the information, the paperwork, and how crucial it was, because, change is hard, and sometimes they're just on that forward momentum, and to have to reassess and adapt. Sometimes they don't feel like they have time for it. So knowing that you have some key players that are saying, okay, this is coming up, this is what you should prepare for. So they could start getting those gears going and they're not so shocked when it happens.
Right. Building your team, and being proactive and keeping them in the loop and building a strategy is what's going to help businesses be successful.
Yeah, most definitely.
Not just flying by the seat of your pants, but actually planning and being proactive.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, you've given us some good points. So we know what we need to navigate, what we could offer to the exchange again to our members. We want them to reach out to us and let us know their pros and cons and what they need and how the exchange can always further their visibility to and offer the services that they need. So I look forward to having some information that we could put out, whether it's in the newsletter or in a class that we can offer. Maybe bring in some bonding as well, so we can bring some more interest in locally, financial and bonding, and see how that can offer some services to offer some relief.
Right. Well, I mean, I have an open door, and I'm happy to help any exchange members with any questions that they might have, whether you bank with Oak Valley or not. I'm happy to, take a look at whatever the specific situation is and try to provide guidance as I can. And just having a resource to be a sounding board, I think, would be beneficial to anybody who's part of the exchange.
Well, and I think that's a nice offer to know that it's, you're just trying to offer those services to further them along. And that's, a huge insurance to the exchange, because there are choices. They might have had a built relationship, but might not know. And again, they're just running by the seat of their pants and making it minute by minute, with the trends and getting called to different jobs for many reasons. Like right now would be water, storm drains, and all sorts of stuff, So it's good to be able to adapt.
Yeah, and getting quick information is important.
Crucial.
So having somebody that's in your phone that you can call, text, email, when you think about something, and then have them respond with,
the insight
quickly and provide actually quality insight is important. And a banker is part of your team.
Yeah.
They're not going to.
It's not like the dentist. You don't need to fear them.
Right. They're not going to be the all-encompassing, advisor that knows all aspects of your business and knows all aspects of everything. But they should be proactive in the things that they can control, and be proactive in helping you be in the best position financially that you can be. Yeah.
Definitely. Yeah. Well, thank you. I appreciate your time and energy here at the exchange, and I look forward to seeing you grow in your position on the board with the exchange. I'm excited to see where we'll be in a year and 2 to 3 years from now. And I'm excited to see how your Rotary President year goes, and I look forward to speaking at one of your clubs if you'd like. And thank you again for already being a huge asset and being at the breakfast and participating. And I couldn't do it without my board members.
Well, thank you for the opportunity to serve on the board. I mean, the honor is mine. And I look forward to, meeting all the exchange members. Look forward to being a resource for everyone who needs it.
So get your bocce ball ready, your golf clubs, your trap shoot, and your crab crackers. That's by the end of the year.
Yeah, my butter and candle.
Yes. Well, thank you again.
Yeah, thanks.
Thank you for watching this episode of Inside the Exchange. For more information about becoming a member of Builders Exchange, click the link below. We'll see you in the next episode.